Any other questions or?
I have a question. You push against high-wage jobs and bullshit jobs, am I right?
Yeah.
So how do you define bullshit jobs?
Well, this was, his name escaped me at the moment, he died recently, sadly.
David Redder.
Yeah, who defined, quote, bullshit jobs. Well, I mean, ultimately it seems to me that it comes back to a measure of job satisfaction by the job holder. So it's not up to me to say somebody's job is mega and elite and somebody else's is bullshit. Nobody else can make that judgment, I think, except the person whose job it is. And if you've got in-work poverty, then clearly you know the system is not valuing that work. Otherwise, why is it not paying sufficient for somebody to live on? So, I mean, I'm not against work, of course I'm not, because I think that creative activity is kind of somehow part of the human ontology. You know, we like to and want to be involved in creative activity, but the way that we have developed to define that as this job thing, and this rather fixed stereotype, and even this thing about the precarity. I mean, it's interesting that some of my colleagues who are most critical of precarious employment tell me that their kids, who are early 20s, love it. You know, they can do a gig in the evening, and I'm involved as a chair of a business in Bristol, happens to be in the care sector, and in this business we get a lot of young people coming along actually want 0 hours contract. We say, no way we don't, we want people who will commit to come and do the job, and they want 0 hours because they live at home with their parents and they can, you know, they want to be able to party and not come on a particular day. So there are some people who seem to want a very flexible mode of employment. Now, if the new paradigm can accommodate that and say, okay, nobody should force, you know, 0 hour contracts, but if you want to that mixed mode, then here is a way by UBI in which you can choose. I think we should be, you know, open-minded and flexible and kind of examine options rather than shutting them down as immediately counter-political. You know?
We have a question from our YouTube stream. It's not directed at anyone per se, but I'd like to hear your 2 cents, Geoff. The question is the following. Isn't the principle behind negative income tax a more straightforward way of handing out money? Perhaps it also, in the end, offers a larger amount for those most in need compared to unconditional universal basic income.
Yeah, again, I'd probably plead for a bit of thought time to answer that properly. But there are questions in each of these schemes as to what the tapers are, you know, as to when people pick up the entitlement and when they lose the entitlement if income increases and so on. I did some work on this a couple of weeks ago, but I'm afraid I haven't got it right at the front of my mind, so I could try to answer it a bit later if somebody wanted to send me an email. My email is on the ubi.org website. So I'd rather be honest and not give an answer than try to bullshit you, as they say.
I could propose a small, a proposal to how to answer this, is that negative income tax could be one of the steps. So instead of deciding that it's the end result or whatever, deciding anything, that could be one of the steps where you can just stop and look around. We have achieved negative income tax in our country. Let's see how it fares for a few years. And is there still poverty? Is there still social unrest or discrimination or whatever questions people want to raise? So this could be one of the steps towards, let's call it utopia.
Yeah, it could. I mean, I think one of the questions about negative income tax was capturing people, wasn't it? You know, to what extent you would actually reach the unreachable person.
Yeah. So with negative income tax, people who are what do you call unreachable, they don't participate in the labor market,
Yeah.
but they have rights.
Yeah.
So it's a certain rights, like voting right. You have a right to this amount, no matter if you work a labor job or if you stay at home taking care of the children, or if you make your paintings or whatever you want to do. So, so nobody's unreachable if you have they are considered as rights.
People negative taxes that it's too slow. It takes some time before you realize that your tax account is positive. And when the government or the payer is realizing this, you may have got another job and don't need that negative tax anymore, or at least it's too late. So and it's a complicated system, but overall you will have the same as the basic income, but it's not working that good as a basic income that is coming every month.
Yeah, I mean that's the other point, isn't it? That a negative income tax is still means tested. That's the definition of a negative income. It's still means tested, and therefore it's still intrusive, and it can become harsh, and so on. But it's still means tested, and we want to get rid of means testing, I think.
Well, I'm in favour actually on taxing the UBI, so in sort of getting it slowly disappearing. And of course, if you out of work, you still have it.
What you said just now, Geoff, about the taxing of UBI, but as soon as it is being taxed, it's not a basic income, because then you have to give basic income plus tax, you know, because so we just, I think the simplest way is just to keep it at covering certain costs. It will be different in each country because of the inflation, because of prices, because of everything. But what I wanted to ask is if it has been considered, what I was suggesting before, that society, all over the world, society should be a shareholder, a founding shareholder in every company and establishment that is born, because they are all based on our joint financing. So so they are grabbing or taking, or whatever way they are taking the know-how in society and benefiting from it personally or from companies, and we don't have any access. But if this investment, our investment, is recognized as a part of each company, not as taxes or anything, it's because value is beyond money. Knowledge is beyond money. So we are financing the knowledge they will be using, each company is using, and so we are shareholders of each and every establishment. So that will be separate, so that money will go into society and run society there amongst financing the distribution of the dividend of our investments. So then at least we have a saying in everything, and it will not be possible for these big companies to fly off with all that money and spending all over the place. And also one thing that I have not heard anybody talk about, and that is that the governments in every world, but I'm not talking about necessarily specific governments, but they should also be more clear about the choice of expenditure. They cannot actually, because if basic income is the primary obligation of each government to pay, because they are established to protect society. So that should be the primary payment is back to society, which is the UBI, the dividend. And for the rest, they can choose what they need to do. Because now we are spending so much money and destroying the world, destroying the killing people. I mean, it's very expensive to kill those people all around the world. You know, nobody's taking responsibility for our expenditure because we are basing our economy in criminality, actually. I know I shouldn't say it, but I see it as such. You cannot spend the same money twice, except in the circular, of course, which UBI is. So UBI is a self-supporting, self-financing economical system, and the best base for keep that going and make that the prime issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do agree with you that knowledge and technology are definable as a public good, and therefore that they are conceptually certainly an argument for basic income. Whether you want to implement that by the community, the state, the government actually taking share capital in businesses is a moot point. And I'm not sure at what level you would apply that. So if I, for example, tomorrow set up a window cleaning business and it was me and a couple of friends, would we go to the length of the state taking a share in that new window cleaning business? I think that the administrative complexity of that is huge. So I'd rather conceptually acknowledge that knowledge is a public good, and this justifies a basic income for all. But I'm not personally that thrilled with the idea of government agencies taking shares and control in businesses. I think they're even worse at it than the businesses.
The thing is that every single company, they have to apply for a license. And that license is in the hands of the government or whatever. So in order to establish something, you get a license. But the thing is that they are all the investors. You establish a business for cleaning windows or whatever, but somebody has to know how to clean a window. So you cannot establish anything except you can read and write. And I'm not talking about necessarily, not at all, like a governmental workers to participate in the company. It's just a regulation as partners. I cannot see any other way how we can bridge the gap between the haves and no-haves.
As a green politician, I'm almost it's important to have the economy stop at the limit, which is the ecological border. And I think if we use this progressivity in much more wider than the fee and dividend for the carbon tax, we will have a system that is providing the planet, but also the result of it will be dividend to the people, because that's the only the best way actually to produce progressivity. So you don't. In such a system, you won't have this huge company, because they are so big that they have. You can say it's a bit easy. If you own 1% of the market, you pay 1% tax. If you own 100% of the market, you pay 100% tax. And nobody will then bother to own 100% of the market. But it's not a simple simplification of the system, but the progressivity is very important in making economy in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the first question about the role of government, that is situation specific. I mean, in the UK at the moment, we have a government that's led us through the folly of Brexit, and therefore the level of trust in that government is extremely low. I mean, I've never seen such a folly in my life. And do I have confidence in that decision? No, I don't. So, I mean, frankly, I'm looking for non-governmental solutions to the future of the UK. So it's very situation specific. And I think in terms of your industry concentration argument, I mean, it does seem to me that most industry sectors converge to something like a 3 firms 70% market share. And there are certain reasons for that in terms of economies of scale, for example. And that competition is not, at the end of the day, somebody wins the competition, or some group of people win the competition. So I personally wouldn't try to stop the most efficient structure coming around. I would then make sure that structure makes its proper social contribution.
We have to talk about team working with the government, because we are choosing our best, or we should be choosing, electing our best people in the government. And that is definitely what we are not doing if we don't trust them for anything.
Yep. So, you know, the political system is as capable of being corrupted as is the business system. You know, how do you then ensure good ethic everywhere? This is surely a separate question of, you know, human ethics in all our institutions and in all our personal behaviours.
Great, thank you, Geoff.
Oh, thank you.
After this, there will still be a final closing statement from Jouko, but I really want to thank everyone, everyone in the audience here in YouTube, Zoom, and Carl and Sebastian. You have been superstars. Thank you. Goodbye.